It's almost time to leave this town of Matsuzaki, Izu, Japan. 6 in the morning, and just a while ago I could hear Mori-san from Shrine pounding on the drum. Every day he does it at 6 in the morning. He decided to do that after the major earthquake took place almost 20 years ago, that he wanted to do this, praying for everyone to live happy. He is about my age, actually 5 years younger or so, and he has turned around this old shrine which has existed in this location for probably 2,000 years. This area is remote in Japan, 5 hours or so from Tokyo, and you couldn't access easily except by the boat in old days. Just around the corner, if you drive or take a bike or take a kayak onto the ocean, you can see the Mount Fuji. It's such a beautiful scenery, that huge mountain of Mount Fuji you can see, and you can imagine how people may respect it, that big mountain. Sometimes, most of the time, it's snow, even in the summertime. Impressive. I'm happy that I found this location. In my college days, I used to come going through the mountain, hiking, and then oceanside walk. I found a town not too far from here. There was a tiny village. People grow flowers. Margaret is the name of the flower. And they have lived peacefully. And I felt at ease every time I come here since then. I left Japan to do my work, exploring my potential, first in the US and then traveled around the world. But at the older age, living in California for 40 years, and other places, including like Ireland or New Zealand, where I have been like 30 times because of my fond preference of close to nature. Now I'm back to this town, attracted as if to revisit this country, but also myself, as I found. In this visit, as I mentioned, the visit to Mori-san at the shrine is one of the key events for me. I studied much further about the Shinto. Before that, I was into Zen, Shin Buddhism, Taoism, even Christianity to some degree. I found after 3-4 weeks of studying and restudying, I realized this Eastern religion, Zen, Buddhism, Shin Buddhism, Taoism, Shinto, has so much in common. And the Christianity is a bit different. The way I can summarize the Eastern religion, so I think, is based fundamentally on where we came from, and the origin, you may call it God, as in Shinto, but has a very close connection to nature. Of course, the nature is the reason why we are here. The law of nature manifested for us to be born on this earth. So there's a respect for that unknown force that brought us on this earth. So that I believe it makes sense for people relate to that as the origin of where we came from, and that force that brought us in us is still prevailing. So, as I mentioned in the other video, the word that the Japanese still use in this little town, like okage samade. Kage is shadow. Okage is just a polite form of saying about the shadow. Samade, sama is respect. De is because of verb. So the point of this casual expression of okage samade is due to the unknown force of the universe, we are here. So that's the expression they still use in this part of the town. I just heard the birds singing. Maybe they agree to my point. Anyway, okage samade. So that's the greeting that people may use. Yet in big cities, just like the wonderful or impressive or sometimes too much influence of the Western technology, science, philosophy, and those Japanese people learned, especially after the Meiji era. Prior to that with shogun and 15 generation of shoguns in Tokugawa era. So there was a huge change in Japanese people's way of living. They connected with Portugal and Holland for some limited basis, but after the visit of they called Black Ship from the US, triggering Japan to open up the country to the West. That happened, I don't know, perhaps 150 years ago, somewhere around there. And this town, Matsuzaki, is close to Shimoda, where that they call Black Ship of Three stayed there for a while and pushed or asked to open Japan for diplomacy and trade, and it turned out to be the beginning of the change. There was an incident in bringing this Meiji era to be, which is the transition from the shogun to have the power, so to speak, of the emperor that existed for many generations from the beginning of this country in their belief. Shinto is related to that the emperor is connected to the beginning of Japan, and for people to connect. And Prince Shotoku, one of the early days of this emperor's prince, talked about harmony as the core of our being. And I thought about it many times in this visit, as much as other visits, that that idea, if you can call philosophy, or also related to religion, with the sense of compassion, is so strong, going beyond ego. I think that was the idea. Prince Shotoku had well described understanding of Buddhism. only after perhaps 100 years Buddhism came to Japan and the Shotoku read those sutras and got the understanding, which is, to me, is amazing, because many of those sutras are very difficult, because they're talking about beyond our mind and what's in our heart, so to speak. So that spirit of compassion and harmony, or war in Japanese, turned out to be the tradition, the source, unifying force for this country, people. And that's what Daisetsu Suzuki mentioned. And at the time I didn't get it, but I feel it, and not just in concept, but seeing the spirit alive. Like I said, big cities has different influence, much more stronger orientation to the Western culture. And I was one of them, that I was attracted to watch some of the TV series, which the TV itself wasn't available at the time when I was little, but perhaps I was 6 or so, or even younger. I remember TV and watching some dramas and stuff that influenced me. And the whole Japan obviously made that shift, even creating some wars for whatever the reason that they may have misunderstood. And then Shinto is kind of lost because of this new military orientation. And there's a case to be made for the emperor who referred to the haiku from Meiji era, his predecessor emperors, talking about what's the point of getting into the turbulence. That was in one of those haiku I mentioned previously. But his thought didn't materialize, but taken over by the people who got perhaps arrogant and started or initiated the war. So the people make mistake. We all make mistake. And that was one of the realization that I want to share the haiku, which I shared in the other video, but it's meaningful to put in the description if I can remember. Anyway, the spirit of war and being together for harmony still live, especially in those small towns like here in Izu. So, what I learned is back to the basic, not just back to how the Japanese culture, the people, philosophy, religion, and its relationship to other religions in the Eastern, but also somewhat connected to the Christian, because the Christian also has the sense of coming from the Garden of Eden. And to that point, like Daisetsu mentioned, Daisetsu Suzuki, a Zen scholar, mentioned, we need to go back to the Garden of Eden to eat apple again. That's the origin, connection to the heart. And then with the wisdom, what we do can be aligned to how we are found to live as a human species. So the Christianity has the same origin, but perhaps more emphasis, as the Bible says at the beginning, is the word. So the word and logic and how to use, and for that Christianity has emphasis of hierarchical relationship perhaps with God, and what's right and wrong, duality. The Eastern religion start and remain the source of who we are as the way of nature. So before duality is non-duality, absolute state of what the laws of beauty first manifested. So that's the origin, and therefore living is that okage-sama de, relating to that kage. It's shadow because you don't see it, but you could feel the relationship to that source of where we came from. Anyway, that's one realization, more fundamental level related to religion, and my wish of may all beings be happy. That's reaffirming the foundation in my view. Other than that, instead of going too long because I spent so much time sharing about my experience in this little town, there are lots of events that took place, fond of memories. But I'm going back to Tokyo tomorrow, and then to go back to the US and New Zealand perhaps, and back to this country, Japan, in about 10 months or so. My life continues, hopefully for a while. I hope I can enrich the way I spend my time to connect to the root, using the brain, listening to the heart, and live with my mission, as I mentioned in my book, Results from the Heart.